Hello there, and welcome back to the channel. I am your host, Moiret Allegiere, manhandling the patriarchy one step at a time. This is My Generation Killed Rock and Roll. We are a generation lost, choking on our own fumes of self-righteous indignation egged on by dishonest academic coprophilia. Come past, come present, come future, we will all be forced to eat shit and then die, harnessed to our safety bubbles and lost within the great wide world void without a safety net. Cerebral coprophilia. Where once we used to taste and thrive on danger, what could be considered dangerous, rebellion and wild vulgarity, rock and roll and free expression, we now thrive on telling others what they may or may not speak and how they should go about doing so, or not doing so. Where once we used to laugh and crack whiplash jokes at just about anything, we are now so inoculated that our mediocre playtime schools tell us nothing of substance for fear of triggering the trigger-happy woke hipster squad armed with muzzle-loss rifles. Pow, pow, pow. We are the generation of South Park and gross-out humour, and we can't stand anything offensive. It boggles the mind and shakes the spinal fluid out my nose and ears. If anything, we should be so used to wild kicks in all directions that nothing would faze us. But the loonies have taken over the asylum. They have overrun our institutions and turned them on their head very much over heels. Wondrous institutions of higher indoctrination into the victim cult of burnt offerings. Necks scarred by failed lynchings. Free-form ideas replaced with cancerous tumors. We no longer seek to understand or heal through laughter and through humour. We seek to heal through trapping ourselves within a cage and throwing away the key. Demanding anything we don't like be thrown out of society and beaten to a bloody pulp by those who are supposedly opposed to violence. Mad wild beast hysteria, mirroring those who protested rock and roll, who decided that Dungeons and Dragons was a pathway to Satanism, who blamed Alice Cooper for murders and claimed Marilyn Manson as the reason for school shootings and massacres. Masculinity is taught in schools to be dangerous ideology, through years of unchecked auto-cannibalism on behalf of Western thought. Research gone the route of subjective opinion where objective fact is naught but triggers for the squad of woke dementia branded by their handlers and told that they must never have their feelings hurt. If they are of a non-masculine persuasion, that is. For there are no checks in place, no balance to be had. Boys and men may still be subject to denigration and hatred, uncensored and shot out both barrels of rhetorical shotguns aimed flat-fisted and devoid of facts at the chests and beating hearts of young boys trapped in schools to be told that they are vicious, visceral beasts of rape and annihilation. And girls are still sugar and spice and everything nice, en masse. All boys and men should do is sit still, silent and complacent, as their inner world burns and wild teachers manifested telepathy reach into their minds to tell them not what they think but what the academic nincompoops of mass indoctrinated hay fever tell them that they think that they think. For boys are still snips and snails and puppy dog tails. And there is something wrong with boys and with men that must be unlearned through rigorous academic shit tests. And this is painted as being of great service to boys and men. Manufacturing confusion and inner turmoil, self-loathing and layers of shame in the souls of boys and men, attacking their core identity, is rendered as a service and not a full frontal assault on their very being. In a just universe, these people would be shunned and shamed for their blatant assault on a group of people for nothing but their innate characteristics. In a universe and a society that ran on reason, these peddlers of abhorrent hatred would be hated and curb-stomped and left in the wilderness. My generation is doomed. Domesticated and complacent, whipped into place by hatred and shame painted in the new glow of liberating equality, by gender-political con artists espousing feminine virtue as the only virtue, demanding that they be the ones to decide what are the real problems facing men, never leaving men a space to decide for themselves, or speak on behalf of themselves. Punctuated by the guttural roar of clenched teeth and fists flung violently towards the world of men, and never, never understanding that it is not in the best interest of men that men should not be allowed to speak for themselves as to what constitutes and makes a man, that it is not in the best interest of men that men should not be the ones to speak on what are the issues facing men. A political movement that has picked its own enemy should not be the ones to speak on behalf of their enemy. This should be obvious. Yet, here we are, a society so firmly placed betwixt the unwashed butt cheeks of feminist misandric ideology that all our noses and all our tongues are brown, and all we taste and smell is shit. So much so that we do not notice the taste and smell anymore. We take it for granted. Part and parcel of the Western utopian pipe-bombed dream where sex and gender does not matter, except when it does matter. And when it does matter, it is when one is better than the other and one is worse than the other, skewed heavily in favor of the fraud and sham of feminist poltergeist philosophy, thriving on hatred and division when claiming to be nothing of the sort. Of course. My generation were fed the notion of equal treatment through the myopic lenses of frazzled and bewildered feminism. We had feminism forced down our throats as the movement with a monopoly on equality, the movement of equality to end all other civil rights movements, past, present and future, so that no other voices and no other views were to be heard and were to be seen. Because there were no other movements of such fantastic vision, such fantastic truth and beauty. Opposition to feminism meant not only opposition to equality, but opposition to women. And opposition to women is worse than being opposed to equality, which, I think, should be an eye-opener if ever there was one. Any movement that does not tolerate dissent, that does not tolerate other movements, should be hastily ignored and thrown out the door flat on their anemic ass. Any political movement so tyrannical and so domineering as to claim to hold the monopoly on this, that or the other should be hastily broken down and drowned in its own septic flesh. The obvious totalitarianism in this way of thinking is nothing that should be celebrated. Yet it was and it is celebrated. It is taught and told and forced down our gullible throats as the only path towards equality, whatever that tenderly infected term equality means. My generation had no personal choice in the matter. We were browbeaten and whipped into compliance with feminist orthodoxy and dogmatic rule through pictures painted and presented us of poor, oppressed women, herded like sheep to the slaughter, opposed at all sides by the wickedness and cruelty of men, leered at and raped at every turn of the cock, ticking time bombs as they were, throbbing and waiting for rape and pillage and plunder and the spoiling of virginal and sanctified womanhood. All this to justify the building up of girls, the girl power rhetoric so hip and cool, at the expense of boys whose shuddering and neglected shapes fell flat on their faces on the sidelines of education reform that taught us nothing but to feel ashamed and feel guilty for our sex, that taught us nothing but an inherent knowledge that we were bad, and all the while telling us, with serpent tongues and crimson smiles, that it was not about hating men or boys. Where once we dared to set course for uncharted waters, where we dared to face the world on our own terms, we have been rendered impotent and deemed incompetent. We have been thrown to the margins and forgotten, our pride and our masculinity swallowed by the serpent shape of gender politics claiming to speak on behalf of both genders, yet caring only for one, neglecting the other. And the serpent gave birth to numerous offspring, clans upon clans of followers of the snake cult, all clinically brain-dead and washed ashore on the rhetoric of shame, hate, rage, ruin, ridicule, hiding and cowering in fear if anyone should propose something outside their ideological comfort zone, claiming offence if truths are presented, and then demanding protection from facts and from truths uncomfortable to their preconceived notions of supposed equal treatment, meaning, of course, superiority for me, inferiority for thee. An arrogant tribe of spoilt and rotten eggs, all claiming tolerance and lack of hatred, all claiming open-mindedness and truth and reason, whilst showing lack of tolerance, proving their unflinching and unbridled hatred at any turn, keeping their minds closed to anything outside their realm of proclaimed knowledge and disavowing facts and truth and reason, countering their dogmatic, borderline religious, flat earth-like convictions, and claiming all things to be offensive, in order to shut down any opposition. This and that and all the other stuff is offensive. As if that is enough of an argument, as if merely the pregnant tunes of offence taken is a counter-argument, a glaringly obvious tactic of manipulation in place of arguments, which somehow fucking bloody goddamned works within and without powerful institutions. My generation killed rock and roll. God have mercy on our souls. On our souls. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this ramble as well as my other ramblings. Please consider sharing, liking, subscribing and all that jazz. That would help the message, such as it is, be manspread far and wide. Take a look at the links down below as well, if you please. Catch you next time.